Putin says in principle he supports the idea of a 30-day ceasefire in the war with Ukraine.
But the truth is, what Trump said he wanted was a full-on, unconditional 30-day.
President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, has now arrived in Moscow to brief Kremlin officials.
Vladimir Putin's once unshakable grip on power is slipping as Russia faces one of the biggest crises in its modern history. What was meant to be a swift military victory has turned into a disastrous war, leaving the Russian economy in shambles, global sanctions piling up, and the death toll surpassing a shocking 928,000. As the number of casualties continues to rise, the Russian people are losing patience, and Putin is running out of options. His once loyal oligarchs are turning against him, military commanders are questioning his leadership, and the people of Russia are protesting in numbers not seen since the fall of the Soviet Union. With the war dragging on, cracks are forming in Russia's military strategy, economy, and political stability, raising the question: has Putin finally lost control? The war has not only been a battlefield disaster but also an economic catastrophe for Russia. Western sanctions have crippled the economy, cutting off access to foreign investments, banking systems, and crucial technology. Inflation has skyrocketed, the ruble has collapsed, and everyday Russians are feeling the pain. Basic necessities have become unaffordable, and businesses are shutting down at an alarming rate. Putin's promises of a strong Russia now seem laughable as the country edges closer to economic collapse. Even his closest allies, like China and India, are hesitant to support him, realizing that associating with Russia could damage their own economies. Once seen as a mastermind of political strategy, Putin is now grasping at straws, trying to keep his grip on a country that is slowly slipping through his fingers. But the biggest blow to Putin's power isn't just the economy, it's the growing rebellion within Russia itself. With hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers dead and countless more injured, families across the country are demanding answers. Mothers are protesting, soldiers are refusing to fight, and even some military leaders are secretly negotiating their way out. The once loyal Wagner group turned against the Kremlin, and reports suggest that other factions within the Russian government are plotting their own survival strategies. Putin's biggest fear has always been internal betrayal, and now it seems closer than ever. The war was meant to strengthen Russia's power, but instead, it has exposed its weaknesses for the world to see. Putin's options are shrinking, and the pressure is mounting from every direction. The Russian people, once fed a steady diet of state-controlled propaganda, are now seeing the devastating truth. Their country is bleeding, and their leader has no clear way out. For years, Putin built his image as an untouchable strongman, a leader who would restore Russia's former glory. But as the death toll climbs past 928,000, that illusion is crumbling. The war has stretched far beyond what the Russian government ever anticipated, and instead of gaining power, Russia is losing everything: its soldiers, its economy, and its international standing. Even countries that once feared Russia's military power are now watching its failures unfold in real time, realizing that the so-called invincible army is falling apart. Meanwhile, Russia's allies are keeping their distance, unwilling to go down with a sinking ship. China, which once showed lukewarm support, is now carefully navigating its position, prioritizing its own economic growth over rescuing Putin. Even longtime partners like India, Turkey, and Kazakhstan are rethinking their ties, avoiding actions that could bring Western retaliation. Inside Russia, the once ironclad loyalty of government elites is cracking. Oligarchs who once thrived under Putin's rule are seeing their fortunes disappear due to sanctions. Many have mysteriously fallen from windows or died in accidents, as Putin tries to maintain control through fear and intimidation. But history shows that once a leader starts turning on his own people, it's only a matter of time before his own people turn on him. And then there's the Russian military itself, which is now exhausted, demoralized, and outgunned. Young, inexperienced soldiers are being sent to the front lines with barely any training, while military commanders struggle with low morale and supply shortages. Many troops, realizing they are being used as cannon fodder, are surrendering or defecting. Even the most loyal Russian generals are beginning to question Putin's leadership, knowing that continued failure could mean they, too, will be sacrificed as scapegoats. The cracks in Russia's war machine are no longer just whispers, they're breaking into the open. When your own army no longer believes in victory, how much longer can the war continue? The world now waits for Putin's next move, but every option looks more desperate than the last. Will he be forced into a humiliating retreat, admitting defeat to the world? Will internal resistance finally topple his rule, bringing an end to his decades-long grip on power? Or, in a last act of desperation, will he double down, risking even greater destruction in a futile attempt to maintain control? No matter what happens next, one thing is clear: Russia is in crisis, and Putin is running out of time. The war that was meant to make Russia stronger has only weakened it beyond recognition, and as history has shown, when dictators start to fall, they fall hard. At this point, Putin's situation is like a really bad game of chess, except he's losing half his pieces are missing, and his own knights are secretly plotting to knock over the board. What started as a supposed 3-day military operation has turned into a never-ending disaster. And the only thing collapsing faster than Russia's military strategy is the ruble's value. Imagine telling your people that you're about to reclaim lost glory, only to end up losing more land, troops, and allies than you ever expected. That's like walking into a casino thinking you'll leave a millionaire, only to realize you just lost your house, car, and maybe even your pants. Putin thought he was playing 4D chess, but it turns out he's been playing Jenga on a shaky table. And now the whole tower is tumbling down. And let's talk about the propaganda machine, because at this point, even Putin's most loyal TV anchors must be running out of ways to spin this mess. Russian state media keeps telling citizens that everything is going according to plan, but even the babushkas watching at home are starting to squint at their TVs in confusion. If we're winning, why is my grandson getting sent to the front with a rusty rifle and a prayer? It's like watching a chef proudly declare his making a 5-star meal, while his kitchen is literally on fire behind him. The Kremlin can censor independent media all it wants, but when the entire country is running out of basic supplies and soldiers are calling home asking for food, it gets pretty hard to hide the truth. Meanwhile, Putin's billionaire buddies, the same oligarchs who used to sip champagne on their super yachts, are now Googling how to escape Russia without mysteriously falling from a window. One day they were living the high life, buying luxury villas in London and Paris, and the next, they're watching their yachts get seized like overdue library books. Western sanctions have turned some of Russia's richest men into glorified coupon clippers, and let's just say, they are not happy about it. If history has taught us anything, it's that when Russian elites start losing their wealth, their loyalty magically disappears faster than vodka at a Kremlin meeting. So, the real question is, who's going to betray Putin first? The oligarchs, the generals, or the people who have been secretly waiting for the chance to kick him out? At this point, the only thing keeping Putin in power is sheer stubbornness and a rapidly shrinking circle of terrified yes-men. But even dictators can't outrun reality forever. The longer he drags this war on, the more Russia turns into a giant sinking ship, and pretty soon, he'll be the only one left clutching onto the wreckage. Will he accept defeat? Unlikely. Will he try to blame everyone but himself? Absolutely. But one thing's for sure, this isn't the glorious empire comeback he was hoping for. The world is watching, Russia is crumbling, and somewhere out there, a former Soviet leader is shaking his head, muttering, "I told you so."